Long ago, there was a man named Jonah. Okay, don't laugh at me. I know his hands are out like this. I'm like, it's precious. One day, God told Jonah to go to a place called Nineveh and to tell them to get it together. Like, really get it together. This city was considered the worst of the worst. Selfish, violent, evil oppressors. Think Game of Thrones times 10. But Jonah said, nah, I think I'll pass. And instead, got on a ship towards a place called Tarshish. Look, Jonah's on the boat. Woo. Okay, Jonah's a lot bigger than the boat, but that's irrelevant. You get the picture. Along came a huge storm. Okay, I've already been laughed at about my my lightning bolt. A huge storm. It might look like a key instead of a... And then, hold on, wait for it. Oh, we're gonna die. Yeah. So this huge storm came along that the Bible says that God sent some kind of wind that made the storm happen. There were sailors on this boat and they were afraid. They tried to do everything. They prayed to their gods. They threw stuff overboard to make the boat lighter. Nothing seemed to help. So they decided they were going to draw straws, basically, and see whose fault this was, that this storm was there. Of course, who do you think drew the short straw? Jonah. Jonah drew the short straw, and they said, who are you and what have you done? So Jonah told them he was Hebrew and he worshiped Yahweh, and he also admitted that minor detail of, I'm kind of trying to run away from God right now, so you might just want to throw me overboard. And they were like, let's try some other things first. So they tried even more. They rowed as hard as they could, and nothing helped. So they decided they would honor Jonah's wishes, and they threw Jonah overboard out of the boat. After they threw Jonah overboard, they decided they would pray to this God that was Jonah's God, ask for forgiveness for probably murdering somebody, and they offered some sacrifices, just kind of wanted to cover their bases, kind of like Matt talked about. I think it was Matt last week that was like, we just keep praying, or maybe it was Taryn this week. We were like, how many times did we say the sinner's prayer just to make sure we covered all of our bases? So they threw Jonah overboard. And then it says that the Lord provided a huge fish. I know this isn't huge. Use your imaginations, people. A huge fish that swallowed Jonah. I can't make him small enough to fit in look, I'm inside the whale. There you go. This huge fish swallowed Jonah. Jonah stayed in there for 3 days and 3 nights, prayed to God, and God eventually made this fish spew Jonah out onto land. Then God came to Jonah and said again, I want you to go to Nineveh. So Jonah was like, fine, I'll go to Nineveh this time. So Jonah walked and walked and walked for 3 days, to be exact. Once he got there, he told them 40 days more and Nineveh will be overthrown. So all of these people and animals, big and small, put on sackcloth, hoping that they could change God's mind. And guess what? God did change God's mind. God saw that they had changed and decided to show them mercy instead of justice, which sounds fun. But Jonah was ticked off. Jonah did not like that this is what God chose to do. He basically said, God, I knew you'd pull this crap. I knew you'd put me through all of this, and then you'd still decide that you love them. This is the part in the Bible, the verse, that says you are a gracious God, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, and ready to relent from punishment. So Jonah basically called God a softie. And then he says, in very dramatic fashion, just take my life from me. I'd rather die. And God basically responds with, chill out, Jonah. I'm not sure why you're so angry. But Jonah is. Jonah went outside of the city, built himself a little fort, and sat there and waited to see what was going to happen. And it was kind of hot there, you know. There's the sun. Jonah's hanging out, trying to watch the city. Come on, son, stay in the sky. Yeah. So God decided to give Jonah a bush to keep Jonah shaded. In his little fort. Then it says that God appointed a worm to go eat this bush. And then he sent another wind. God really likes wind in this story. Sent another wind to make it even hotter. So again, Jonah's like, just let me die. But God said, are you really angry with the bush? And Jonah said, angry enough to die. And God said, so you can be concerned about this bush that you had absolutely nothing to do with creating. But I shouldn't be concerned with a city of more than 120,000 people that I created who are on the struggle bus right now. And also the animals. And that is how the story ends. Hello again. My name is Blair. I'm the children's pastor here at Watershed. I think most of you know that by now after our morning. I'm also a bit of an overcommitter, if you can't tell that, since this is, the second time I've been on stage today. The story that I just shared, Jonah, some of you may have heard this story before. It comes from the Old Testament. And I remember hearing this story in Sunday school. And with my teacher at the Methodist Church, we got to use this awesome little flannel graph so it came to life. We at Watershed are all about reclaiming things, so I reclaimed the flannel graph today because what did it ever do to you? Nothing. Isn't it so fun? And for those of you in the back, I know you probably can't see my small characters, but you just need to know that they're perfect and awesome and super creative. I should probably get a job to make flannel graphs. If this fails, that's what I'll look into. So, I actually love the story of Jonah. Was it a little bit freaky to a 3-year-old to hear this that lived at the ocean and spent hours and hours and hours in the water? Yeah, maybe a little. Nothing like the fear of getting eaten by a fish, right? While you're playing in the water. Was it also pretty scary to think about this big God that was actually going to punish me if I wasn't completely obedient? Yeah, that was terrifying for me. I don't want you to hear me say I was a perfect child, but I was a perfect child. No, I was very much a people pleaser though, and I wanted people to think that I was perfect. So, being disobedient was one of the biggest fears for me. I wanted nothing more than to be part of this in-group of Christianity the more I heard about it, which kind of aligns with the nice list whenever you think about Santa during Christmas. But then there were these questions in my mind, these questions of, how do I hear God's voice? What does God's voice sound like? What if I miss it? What if I'm sleeping? What if this happens? I was so stressed out. Is God going to put me in a well for 3 days? I'm so confused. Clearly, I was a little bit anxious about this. In in reality, I also was anxious when I found out our bodies were mostly made of water because I thought I was going to drown. And in high school, I was scared I was going to get pregnant by sitting on a toilet seat. Maybe that's an overshare, but maybe I had a little too much anxiety. Anyway, as I've gotten older and studied theology and read scripture through a more diverse and inclusive and communal lens, I've realized that maybe there's something more to see in these stories that we've heard so many times, especially in this story of Jonah. And that's why this community and this series is of great value to me. This is a place where we can be curious together, learn together, unlearn together. It gives us space to see things differently. Just as a side note, shout out to David and Matt. The last 2 weeks that they have taught were phenomenal. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to those, I would encourage you to. They're on Facebook, YouTube, or on our app in the podcast link. Now, there's a chance that some of you maybe just heard the story of Jonah for the first time, and that's okay. But there's also a chance that some of you were taught the story like I was. You were taught through this lens of humans are terrible, we really can't change because it's just how we were made, and we just have to spend our whole lives trying to be good enough. But today I want to take us deeper into Jonah. And the way I want to do that is through a friendly little competition. So, if you would like to participate, I would like for you to take your phones out. I know I'm telling you to take your phone out during service. If you can't beat them, join them. Take out your phones if you'd like to play. Nothing will be shown publicly. So even if you get the answers right or wrong, nobody will ever know. But you just want to put in your phone the website kahoot.it. I promise it's going to be fun. Once you have that pulled up, the next step will be very important. I am going to give you a code to put in for our game we're going to play today. Now, you're also going to get to choose a nickname. And I'm going to tell you, like I used to tell my fourth graders, choose your nicknames wisely. And then I gave them these eyes. If you do win, I might call out your name, so please don't make me call out anything that's going to make me blush. That's really what I'm asking right now. So, are you ready for your code? Okay. Your game code is 152 5953. And we're going to try to put this on the screen too. I'll repeat it. 152 5953. Oh, somebody's Jonah. I see you. Just trying to be creative. Okay. All right. Did somebody say I cannot even? This is the best. Sorry, nobody gets to see these but me. Also, this is kind of like, since we're flannel graphing it too, I decided I'd do like a children's sermon from like childhood. You know, I used to get probably stale candy whenever you came up for children's sermons. I decided I'd get you a prize if you win today. But it's not candy. It's one of these sweet magnetic fishing pole games. Do I need to walk it up and down the aisle so you can like touch it? And too bad. Just know that that is your prize at the end. Perfect. Okay, so we are going to go through. I am going to read you the question. It will also show up on the screen. If you would like to read it yourself and you're faster to answer, do. Because you get scored by how fast you respond and if your answer is correct. So you can answer all these questions right and still not win. I'm sorry. So the quickness also plays a role. So if you want to read it on the screen, you do that, but I'll also be reading it. The options are all by color and a shape. So you just choose whatever answer, and there's only one answer per question. So you can't do multiple responses. Are you ready? May the odds be in your favor. Okay, first question. Are you ready? Oh gosh, I forget I have to do this at the same time. I haven't been in a classroom in a long time. Oh gosh. Okay, here we go. Wait, is it working? It's loading. It's loading. All right, how many people can fit into a whale's mouth? Whales don't eat people, duh. Probably around 5. Depends on how big or small these people are. Or 400 to 500. Almost. All right, let's see. 16 of you got it right. If you chose 400 to 500 people, you are correct. Now, I hate to tell you this is not a relevant question. I just thought it was fun, so I added it in. So it was kind of our warm-up. So you got one right. And if you're a 5 on the Enneagram, then you're like, yes, random facts. I love knowledge. So you're welcome. All right, second question. You ready? All right. True or false? This isn't news to me. There are other stories about humans being swallowed by whales. Is that true or false? So close. So close. I can't wait to see what you all picked. Dun, dun, dun. 70 of you got that right. It is true. Did you know that in 1891 there was a British sailor? His name was James Bartley, and he pretty much swears up and down he got swallowed by a whale. They said that he spent 15 hours in the belly, and then they cut him out, and the acid in the stomach had bleached his skin completely, and he was blind whenever he came out. Now, scientists have done some science since then, and they say that's not really possible. So that's a questionable story, but I still thought it was interesting. But even more interesting, and I found this out on the TikTok a few weeks ago, reputable source, there was a lobster diver in Maine. His name is Michael Packard, who was swallowed for 20 seconds, never made it to the belly or the stomach. The humpback whale spit him back out. This just happened in June. It just happened. He was seriously injured. If you Google this and go, I mean, he's alive. He's got lots of stuff, lots of interviews out there. But if you Google it, which I encourage you to do so this week in your free time, the comments are hilarious. So if you need something to laugh about, I would recommend it. So good job. Next question. Let's see. Who's in the lead? The whale fish TH is in the lead. Some of you better get it together. The story of Jonah seems to be, completely true. It's in the Bible. Completely ridiculous, a little fishy, if you ask me. I have no idea, but it's really weirding me out. Those are your choices. Man, you guys are slow on this one. I know I made it tricky. Are you smarter than a 5th grader? All right. 14 of you got it right out of like 87 of us. This story is a little fishy. I guess that one could change based on like what you really think about it. But I went with a little fishy because I don't know about you, but like I said, I was taught that there were all these things in this story. But more importantly, I was taught that this story was completely historically accurate. And anytime we ask questions about this whale eating a person or this fish, we were told not to question God's power because God can do anything God wants. This was also one of those times that people said, you can't pick and choose what you want to believe from the Bible. If that's not true, then none of it's true. But, animals repenting in this story, that's a little weird, y'all. And a weird detail in the Bible might be a hint that we should kind of pay attention. It also probably tells us this story is not literal. Maybe there's something bigger to see here. Maybe the weird parts are in the Bible for a reason. And why do I think this? Because the weird stuff is just a little too weird in this story. In the whole 4th chapter of this book, there's an argument or a debate between Jonah and God And some of you are thinking, what's weird about arguing with God? But the weird thing here is that the word count is the same for both of the characters. Whenever you read this in Hebrew, it's really interesting because Jonah starts with 39 words. Then God counters with 3 words. Then Jonah says 3 words. Then God says 5 words. Then Jonah says 5 words. Then God closes with 39 words again. Both of them have exactly 47 words. Do I think that's coincidence? No. For some reason, the author thought it was important. So we probably should too. Next question. Uh-oh, it says trying to reconnect. Come on, you can do it. It doesn't want to reconnect. What does yours say? Does yours say anything? No. It says, oh my gosh. If our game dies, I'm going to have to give everybody a go fish. Just kidding, we'll break it off. One person will get a fish, one person will get a pole. Okay. All right, next question. Oh, TJF just moved up. Sorry, whale fish TF. Jonah is considered satire. What clue might tell us this? Animals becoming good. Jonah's a lot dramatic. Incongruity, hyperbole, exaggeration throughout, or all of the above? Choose one. Awesome. 56 of you got that right. Yes. One of you picked Jonah's a lot dramatic. I love that. I don't know who that was, but you might be my best friend. So, next one. True or false? Jonah dies in this story. Jonah dies in this story. True or false? This is really a trick question. Almost there. Ooh, 69 of you said false. 7 of you said true. How funny that 7 is a Holy Bible number, because the 7 of you were right. I am going to argue that Jonah actually dies in this story, and that's not something that we commonly hear. But I found this to be extremely interesting. You know, I grew up hearing this story that as soon as Jonah got thrown overboard, the fish basically picked him up, was like waiting like his Uber, you know. But that's not the case. In the next chapter, when Jonah actually shares Jonah's prayer, we see that Jonah went to the depths of the ocean. He talks about the seaweed being around him and hitting the floor. It also is a way in Hebrew that they talk about going to hell. So, I'm going to argue that I think Jonah went all the way to the bottom of the ocean floor and actually died in this story. And then, of course, was reborn. So, Easter in August. You know, it's like Christmas in July, Easter in August. So this basically is a story of rebirth. Jonah spent 3 days in the belly of the whale. Jesus spent 3 days in the belly of the earth. Both died. Both came back to life. And guess what? They both were saying that God is for all people. So we can argue about historic and scientific accuracy here, but we're probably going to miss the whole point of this story. I would argue that this is one of Jonah's greatest conversion moments. Richard Rohr reminds us that it's great love or great suffering that changes us. And I would say for Jonah, this was a moment of great suffering. Next question. Ready? The fish in the story is most likely male, female. Does this actually matter? Or both? Choose wisely. I need some like Jeopardy music. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. So close. We do love our pronouns here at Watershed. What are these fish's pronouns? Ooh, 17 of you said both, and 43 said, does this really matter? I like it. That means you're learning something. But in this case, I'm going to go with yes. And this goes with the last part where I talked about Jonah died. So in Hebrew, we actually, whenever we meet the fish is male. When the fish has Jonah in the fish's belly, she's a female. And then the fish changes back to a male whenever it gets spit out. Now, some people say that that's just like, oh, somebody messed up writing it. Again, when we see weird things in the Bible, we probably should pay attention because there's a reason they're there. I love this because to me it goes with Jonah dying and being reborn. There's something beautiful about this whale being female while Jonah's inside of it. The female belly, the womb, is where life is given. And that's the same thing that's happening here, is that Jonah is being reborn. Jonah is coming back to life while he's spending time in this belly. So again, this is another example in Scripture where we see resurrection, new life, rebirth. It happens over and over and over again. All right, next question. You guys only have 2 more. You better get it together. Why do you really think Jonah is ticked off when God changes their mind? Because Jonah wants these people to get what they deserve, because Jonah is scared, because Jonah would be considered a false prophet and murdered. Can it be a little of all of these? Oh no. Do we have it now? I'll read it again. The first one is oh man. Look, I should have just told y'all the answer so you all got that one right. It was a little of all these. So I'll say it again. Why do you think Jonah's ticked off when God changes their mind? And it's a little bit of all of those things. Jonah was probably feeling a lot of emotions. Nineveh was so bad that Jonah wanted them to get what they deserved. In 2 Kings, we read about Nineveh constantly because it's part of Assyria. There are multiple kings that it talks about in 2 Kings. One, it says, invaded the land. One deported people from their land. And then one laid siege to it. Invaded, as in violently take over somebody's country. Deported, capturing the ones who live there and forcibly removing them, then stealing all their land and their towns. Laid siege, when you surround a city and cut off their food and water supply so that they basically suffer and die a slow death or surrender. Might sound a little familiar, some of that. So I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I blame Jonah for wanting them to get what they deserve. But also, Jonah was probably scared. Jonah was considered a prophet, and if you prophesy something and it doesn't come true, then they think you're a false prophet, which means then they kill you. So, Jonah probably had some fear as well. Jonah felt like they deserved complete death. And like I said, I don't know that I would disagree. Some people doesn't feel like they deserve second chances or third chances or fourth chances. But I'll be honest, I'm really glad that I've gotten those chances. So the question with this is, what do we really desire? Do we desire God's mercy? Do we desire God's justice? Do we desire retribution or reconciliation? The thing is that God's justice is tied to God's mercy. What would it look like if we were compassionate, slow to anger, and abounding in love? That was probably the question for Jonah in this story, and it's also the question for us. The vertical movement of love affects the horizontal movement. I'll be honest, moving to Charlotte, if we could just drive compassionate and abounding in love, I'd be happy. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to get on my soapbox. Charlotte has the worst drivers of anywhere that I've ever been. And I've driven in New York, LA, San Francisco, Boston. Charlotte needs to get it together. People are selfish drivers. I'm always like, what is happening? So that's probably a good place for us to start. Come on, Watershed, be good drivers. That's what you learned today. Last question. Hopefully we'll get the right question on this one. Okay, last one. The story of Jonah is really about a disobedient person named Jonah, a place called Nineveh full of terrible sinners, God's love for all of creation, or saving people who don't know Jesus. One second. Yay! 60 of you. Okay, 60 of you can leave. The rest of you are going to have to stay because you didn't get that right. I'm just kidding. So 60 of you said God's love for all creation, which is true. This is a creation story as well as a resurrection story. This is a reminder about God being a universal God. I think that there's so much in this story. So much that even I couldn't even cover today. But on the quiz, okay, let's see who came in first place. Jilly came in third place. T. Jeff came in second place. And Chris H. came in first place. Chris H., you are the new owner of a Go Fish set. If you see me after this, I will make sure you get your fish pole and your little magnetic fishies. I hope it works. If it needs batteries, let me know. Isn't that the worst? You get a present and it needs batteries and nobody has batteries. So I hope you learned something new about Jonah this morning. I know this was very different from the way that I've talked in the past, but I thought maybe this could be a fun, interactive way for us to go through this story. I know that all of this probably seems scattered. It's all over the place, but I'm hoping that you all heard or saw something new in this story this morning that you didn't know before. I know that we went from, is it a whale or a fish? Is it true? Is it fake? Is it about disobedience? Is it about forgiveness? Is it about saving people's souls? But I'm hoping that you see past all of those things that maybe we learned as children. I'm hoping that you see that this messy book with messy people in messy times is no different from you and me today. The themes of grace and mercy over justice, choosing life over violence, and loving all people. And I mean all people. We see that this is a resurrection story, another Easter story, another story of God giving humanity the choice to choose life for ourselves, for our communities, and for our world. This story shows us that God is not a God of destruction, but a God of relationship. To me, this is huge. God is calling us, all of humanity, into a better future. For me, I don't know about you all, but this year has been a lot. And I can honestly say that I feel a little like Jonah the last few weeks, like I'm sinking and drowning deeper into the ocean, feeling hopeless, feeling frustrated. So I know that I am in a season that I need renewal. And this story gives me hope that I can be reborn, that something new can come. I was reminded this week in rereading a Henry Nouwen book that this is what makes us beautifully human. The fact that we do renew. We do get reborn. I'd like to pray with us before we leave. And then that'll be it. God, thank you so much for being a God that is compassionate, slow to anger, and abounding in love. God, help us to be people that are the same way. Help us to desire and work towards your mercy and your grace instead of your justice. Help us to be people that sit in the belly and let you recreate us and make us new. Thank you for being the God that makes all things new. We love you. Amen. Thank you for being here this morning. Have a great week. Chris H., don't forget to come get your goldfish game. Thank you.